So we're going to start, this is on internal controls and common comments. I'm going to briefly go through what internal controls are, because I know none of you know what they are. And then we're going to go through the comments, but there's a reason why these are all intertwined, because all the comments I looked at with non-compliance, there are internal control deficiencies. So I have to keep going through this stuff because we're maybe missing something. You guys have the controls in place, but are we going back and looking at them and making sure that they're effective? Okay, that's what I want you guys to keep thinking about. And I know we say it a lot, but it's an ever-changing process, okay? So let's start on internal controls. And let's talk about the definition. So internal control is the process by which management structures an organization to provide assurance to an entity's operations effectively and efficiently, has a reliable financial reporting system, and complies with applicable laws and regulations. I've underlined things that are very important. So the operations, how you guys operate, your financial reporting, how it comes to us, and how it complies with statute. So is it in compliance? So again, we have majority of the time internal control deficiencies when there is non-compliance. So you'll kind of see as I go through the common comments that I looked at that I'm talking about non-compliance, but at the same time, it happened because there was an internal control deficiency. The control just didn't work. Sometimes they're rare, but sometimes it was an oversight. So we got to think about why is it happening, okay? So we know what the definition of internal controls is. Okay, what is the purpose? To combat fraud and mistakes by preventing opportunity, detecting fraud and errors, and omissions. So it's not always fraud. Sometimes it's just simple mistakes. Again, you transposed a number. It happens. We're all people. But if we have an internal control process in place, there's a chance it could be caught. So if someone did transpose a 48 for an 84, what's the control that's in place to catch that so that it doesn't happen? Again, that could have just been sense, but what if they were supposed to write a $2,500 check and they added another zero? It ended up being $25,000. It was keyed in incorrectly. Are we catching it? So that's it. Again, we do a lot of these processes. Sometimes, again, you guys are short-staffed. You do them quickly. So where is that double check to make sure that this information is there? Okay. The objectives. Don't these three words look very familiar? They were 2 slides ago. And they were in the, I didn't get like that's what I was looking for, okay? I'm trying to connect the dots here, okay? I know it's late in the day, and I'm gonna need you guys to interact with me just as much as you did this morning. I know that that's asking a lot, but I will call on people, okay? But these objectives are what's in the definition. So the operations, reporting, compliance, because again, you want to operate effectively. You want your reporting to be accurate. Because how many times, whenever you report something, you guys file the AFR, and then we come in and we audit, and we go, hey, this isn't timed to your records. And you're going, that was a long time ago. I don't remember what happened. So if we're again, you guys have slept since then. You guys have handled so many, again, a lot of you have handled like complete county outages. So it's like you have other things going on in your brain than the AFR that you submitted way back when. So you want to make sure that when you're submitting those reports and when you're doing that thing, it's like, okay, did I follow the process and procedures that I had in place? Did I do that double check? Did I make sure it was accurate? Did I make sure it was effective so that you can be like, okay, at the point in time, I believe it's as true and correct as possible, and it's in compliance. So again, remember that when we're talking about internal controls, okay? can only make them so fun, but I love them, okay? Okay, I'm gonna use my laser pointer. Gonna do this. Jackie, don't hate me. I'm gonna turn around. Okay, control environment. That was scary. I had someone ask me recently about control environment, and it was just in passing. It was more of a comment of, how do I make the people in my office care as much as I do? Well, tone at the top. How are you showing to your staff that it's important, that this information is true, that this information is correct, that they're doing their best job? You are management. You guys are the ones that are with them every single day. If you're giving your all, that rubs off on people, okay? A lot of it's rubbed off on Lori. I'm like, hey, Lori, give me some of your greatness. You want that. I want to do a good job. I want to talk about internal controls just as well as she does. Do I know it that well? Kind of. But at the same time, you can always do better. And that encouraging your staff to care, to be present, to do the best that they can, ask those questions. You guys, with your ethics and values, that's what makes your office continue to run and operate efficiently and effectively. So it's you guys and how you guys set up your structure. How are you doing it? So that's what I told someone, and I was like, they're only going to care as much as you care. It wasn't, I was just a fact. If you go in every single day and you expect them to be there, be present, do those things, again, it's a public trust, what you guys are doing. You guys are dealing with taxpayer money. So again, what are you putting into it? So that's the tone at the top. That's the control environment. It's the whole, we'll just call it a vibe that you give your office, okay? What vibe are you putting out there? I mean, I sound like such a young kid when I say that. What's the vibe? But, maybe do a vibe check. Are we going, oh, I just don't really care that much today. Today is ugh. And then it's like, well, everyone's going to be like, ugh, yeah, I get it. But if you come in and you're like, we're going to do our best today, that's what I do. And Ricky's like, you need to tone it down. And I'm like, well, vibe check. Come on, meet me, okay? She sometimes pulls me down. You guys get it, okay? But see, you guys get where I'm coming from, okay? It's your guys' offices, your people. So that's our control environment, okay? So let's use our handy dandy laser pointer. Control activities. Okay, I think Lori and Ricky, before I even got here, and Debbie and Tammy and Stephanie and all the people before me, told you guys all about these things. You have to have policies and procedures in place, okay? They've hammered that into your skulls, and so you know that you have to have a control, okay? That's not a question. You guys know you need to have a control in place. Some of you guys are putting the control in place, but we're not monitoring or assessing risk when you get those deficiencies. So, I'm not going to call anybody out. I was going to do a quick poll, but from reading the reports, it's a fact. You remember the skit that you guys loved so much at Quads, and I was so entertaining about monitoring and risk assessment, and you guys were like, oh, you're the best, okay? I remember it like that. You guys might not. But what I was trying to hammer home is, when we come in and we do your audits, we can't be your monitoring. And sometimes you guys use us as your monitoring because, again, I know you're busy. I'm not saying you're not. But when you get reports and comments that have internal control comments, what are you doing at that point in time when you get them? Are you saying, what was the goal that I was supposed to achieve in that moment? Like, what happened? Are you analyzing the risk? Are you reducing the risk? Well, if the deficiency continues to happen and it's more and more and more frequent, We're not monitoring. We're not coming up with resolutions, how to fix it. So this is what I was trying to hammer home, because again, you guys know you need this, but we're not doing this, and we're not doing this. And I think also we're not informing and communicating. Because how are you guys telling your staff, like, hey, how are we talking about it? How are we getting there? Again, I know communication nowadays is really weird. Everyone just wants a text message or an email. Well, okay, send them a text and say, hey, we really need to talk about how to fix our problems. So how are we going to do that? Can we have a phone call? We need to talk about it. It needs to be a conversation. We need to fix our issues, okay? So those are the 5 components of internal controls. I'll continue to amp you guys up and make you guys have the best tone at the top, because you guys are doing a great job, okay? That's not why I'm up here. I'm not preaching at you. You guys are doing great. We just need to figure out how to monitor our internal controls, how to erase these internal control, how to get these IC comments out of these reports. How do I fix things in my office? And Ricky, Lori, and I would love to have these conversations with you. I don't know how many times I've had offices call me and go, I don't know why I got this comment. And you know what I said? Let me go read your report, and then I want you to send me in writing what your processes and procedures are. Because you can write down that you're going to do one thing, but if you're not actively doing it and it's showing up as a deficiency, is it an effective internal control? If errors are getting through, things are getting missed, then we need to go back and we need to figure out what the goal was, analyze the risk. What if this continues to happen? Because if people continue to see, let's go with the payroll one real quick. That one's easy. If people continue to see that the auditor's office is just overpaying people and it's not getting caught on paychecks, and every single paycheck, they're just keep getting overpaid and overpaid and overpaid, and no one's going back, and there's that obvious no internal control. No one's looking and making sure that they're being paid properly. Is that person going to come to you and be like, hey, you've been paying me too much for like 5 years, but I didn't want to tell you. And again, this is what those things can snowball and they can build. And it's like, well, if you're probably paying one person wrong, one person's going to go, they're not catching it. So, if you maybe do this, we need to make sure, again, you guys are like, we have processes in places. That's how the county keeps going. But are we going back? I don't want to use the word reflecting, but are we observing what our processes are? And are we trying to make them better? Are we trying to fix them? So that's what I want you guys to think about as I go through these comments. Okay, so I'm going to try not to move, but I can't promise anything. So when I looked at audit reports, I know that all of you have not been audited yet, and I'm not going to point out whose I looked at, but I did look through 55 audit reports. I think all of them that were filed for counties as of 2 weeks ago. I pulled all the comments from all the reports. I did not pull Section 2 and Section 3 findings, okay? I can only handle and read so many comments. So I only pulled the supplemental reports, and how many of those audit reports had comments was like one of my things. I go, well, I looked at 55 of them. Well, it turned out 32 audit reports had comments. And these could range from one comment to, I think the most was like 6 or 7 comments. So I didn't look at to see like, oh, this is a problem everyone's having. Because really, you guys are kind of all over the place, okay? There's only a couple things that are evident that are still problems, okay? But I looked at a total of 96 comments. Guys, and I'm not a fast reader, okay? Like, I put time into this, so you guys better appreciate this. But of those 96 comments that I read, I found it interesting that 49 of them were repeat comments. And it's not like it was a repeat one time. It was a repeat multiple times. So my question was, why? Why is it continuing to happen? What can we do? So I want you guys to think about that. You guys can go back, you can look at your audit reports. If it's a comment that you guys keep getting, you guys can email us and be like, hey, I realize this comment has been in my report like 6 times. I don't know how to fix it. If you ask us that, I'm going to say, what are your processes and procedures? What are you doing right now? And then we'll look at the problems in the comment. Then we go, how do we fix it? We'll help you guys try and figure out how to fix it, okay? I love trying to fix problems. I'm like a fixer. Love it. I don't kill people or anything, okay? Don't think of it like that. I fix your internal control problems, okay? So I'm a fixer in that sense. So let's go through the most common comments. And what you're going to notice are on the left side of the screen, those are all annual financial report comments. So everything that you fill out and put into your annual financial report, that's where majority of the comments are coming from. And again, grants are one of those that if you had a federal report, you also had a Section 2 finding. So they go hand in hand. So I'm going to touch on grants, but grants was at the top of the list. That just basically the grant information that was entered into the annual financial report was not true and correct. It had either understatements, overstatements, incorrect program names, things like that. But you want to know, what was the second? They're in no order on the screen. Can anyone guess what the second most comment was in the AFRs? Yes. Oh my gosh. I'm like, what is happening? So you guys realized it, that your auditors were in there. They're probably asking you a ton of questions. Okay. Some of you are like, capital assets. Yeah, so capital assets, I want to say that of the 32 comments that I saw in reports, there were, I want to say between 15 to 20 comments that were just on capital assets alone. And I'm like, wow, what's going on with that? So these are the things that I want you guys to think about, and I have slides for each one. And I want to make each comment that we're talking about, so I broke down the most common comments. I want to go through those and I want to kind of brainstorm. So like if you had the comment and you're willing to like kind of talk it through with me and be like, this is why I keep getting this comment. What can we do to fix it? Those are the conversations I want to have. So if you're brave enough that you had this comment and you're like, how do I fix it? We can have that conversation now, or we can have it at a later point in time. But I want you guys to keep your mind, that I'm trying to get you guys thinking on how to fix it. Because if it's other departments, again, what's within your power? That's what I want you guys to think about. Like, how can I fix it? Well, if the answer is the departments are the reasons that you keep getting these comments, okay, well, what are the controls in place and what are your processes and procedures to get that information? Is there something you could change to be like, hey, let's fix this? Do you see this comment? It reflects badly on all of us. So I want us to think about that. The other comments that surprised me were the accounts payable and receivable. That ranked up there pretty high in the AFR. And we'll talk about that a little bit more. And then the AFR debt section and financial data. So we're going to touch on all the topics on the screen. And then I have a last slide that's kind of like the catch-all problems that if we have time, I'll spend time on it. But I want to really just get to the important stuff. Okay. Is on the screen annual financial data and investments. Okay. So you'll notice the very first bullet point of every single slide is the internal controls, no segregation of duties or not effectively implemented. So the financial data and the investments, we're talking about your receipts and disbursements and your investments that you're entering. So that financial data section of your AFR, that's where we're seeing, this is where I'm talking about those issues right now. So leaving off outside offices. So I think some of them like the sheriff, inmate trust, and inmate trust, and what's the other one? Commissary, yeah. They're being left off, or the clerk's office, the trust accounts that they hold, they're being left off. So what can we do to make sure that those outside offices aren't being left off? So maybe, again, you don't hold the money. It could be a last minute thought, but maybe during the process, could you go, hey, do I have all the county money, all the outside ledgers included? I don't know. Is that like a step that you guys do? Do you guys go back and say, okay, did I get all the supplemental AFRs? Is that a step that people do? Yes? Okay. And then it's like, well, do you keep hounding them? Or is there a point whenever you go, hey, if I don't get it by this date, I'm leaving you off? Please don't do that. But you can only do what you can. But again, you need to have all the financial information in there. So that's one of the big things, was they were leaving out outside offices. Investments that were sold were still in the financial data section. So the sale of that investment wasn't properly recorded, and it overstated the balances. One of them that I saw, no controls in place using a third party. And this one was more over the internal control aspect. So if you have a third party that is completing your AFR for you, and they're handing it back to you and saying, hey, review and approve it and submit it, they weren't reviewing and approving the information that that person entered. They just clicked the button and let it go, and there were a whole bunch of errors. So we need to make sure that if you are having an outside person enter the information into Gateway, that you are doing a review and approval. Again, you're the fiscal officer. That's your records. Are you making sure that the information in there is true and correct? So you need to make sure that you do that double check, do that review, have documentation of it. Transactions were not properly posted. I want to say this because I think a lot of people forget it. If you have negative receipts or disbursements and you try and upload them into Gateway, it'll kick them out and not tell you, because a negative number isn't allowed to be uploaded into Gateway. So if you have negative numbers in there, it's going to kick them out. It's not going to tell you. And if you don't go back and review your balances for receipts, disbursements, and the beginning ending cash balances, and it kicked a whole bunch of stuff out, you're going to be understated. It's not going to be right. So I think that was one of the way that the transactions were posted. So we just need to be cognizant of the information for the financial data. When we enter it, does it look like that report that you're uploading into Gateway? Okay? Because that's what you should have. And this AFR should tie to that. It should match your financial system. As Ricky likes to say, and Lori, document, document, document. Okay. And I think we're still not seeing some internal controls. Shame on you. No, I'm just kidding. Okay. Grants. So obviously no internal controls, no segregation of duties. They weren't not effectively implemented. Like I said, I didn't read the Section 2 comments, but most of the time the AFR grants and the Section 2 comments, they go hand in hand. Because, again, the expenditures were either over or understated. They had incorrect program names, assisted listing numbers, pass-through entities, identifying numbers. I know that grant section, it's a lot in Gateway. And the way that the screen scrolls, it's really weird. And you have to make sure that you have the whole line filled out and then go back to the other side. Again, I know it's a hassle, but we need to make sure that at the end, you can go and you can print a report output of your grants. And you need to go through and make sure, like, hey, it's all that information there. Did I leave off any federal grants? And I know sometimes departments do not give you grant information. So, who has figured out a good way to get grant information if people are leaving it off? Has anyone come up with a creative idea? Do you just go and harass the departments, or you don't let them?
Until we get that agreement.
Okay, say that again into the microphone.
We do not assign it a fund number or process claims or anything until we get that grant agreement.
Okay, and does that work?
Yep.
How many of you guys do that? Ooh, okay. Has that cut down on the number of errors in your grant section? Okay, there's some head nod. Okay, that's great. That's a very good idea. It's kind of like, you're like, I'm not going to give you that. I love it. It's my level. I like that.
Well, I'm not mean about it.
No.
I can't.
You need proper information. Again, I totally get it.
Yes, you do. Another thing that we do is we make the department that has filed and received the grant fill out a grant summary form. And then we review the grant agreement against what they filled out, verify that that is correct before we create the fund also.
Oh, okay. So you're adding like an additional paperwork thing. Love that.
So yeah, along with that, we also have we actually have a grant program process for the county, and all the departments have that. Then they have to submit the documentation, fill out what kind of grant they're applying for, state or federal, and then we also check our SAMs and make sure that we also get the information from there, that we have the correct information for how the grant is identified. Then we give the funds, and then we also track it on an Excel tracking sheet.
Awesome. Whenever you guys do that, do you guys keep all the grant information in the auditor's office, or do you let them house it?
No, we actually keep it out on our shared drive, and then we also have a hard copy so anybody can access it
Okay.
with that.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Okay, go ahead, Angie.
We had an issue, and this kind of been in general to the group. Anybody has any ideas with the Indiana Department of Health and grants? Our health department loves to go get money. They have no idea what the money's for. I spent, along with my first deputy, I can't tell you how many hours arguing with the Department of Health, telling them that this grant, they kept saying it was not a federal grant, but everything on the grant paperwork said it was. So does anybody have any suggestions? Because I'm at my wit's end with the health department and the Indiana Department of Health.
I don't disagree.
I don't know if we have answers, but we have agreement in the room.
I don't disagree.
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen what you're seeing. You know, I've had lots of conversations and you're sending it to me and I'm like, this isn't matching up to the email that they're sending you. And I'm trying, but I have to go through a back channel.
Oh, they're too big to be audited by State Board of Accounts.
No, they're not.
Did they know that we audit the state?
That we
too?
do audit them.
Yeah.
We do.
We
and
do
I am in contact with
we
that federal
notify our
person.
state auditors about those too.
I feel like an email's brewing.
So our county actually requires an ordinance to be created to create a fund. So the department has to go up and get approval before the funding is created.
And then you need all the documentation to create the fund.
We got like a 3-page form of all the information required.
Okay.
Yeah, it's actually in the process of being adopted right now by the commissioners.
Local policy. Interesting. So does that give people ideas? And again, you guys can totally share amongst each other. I love this, and this is why we need to talk about it. But I feel like I don't have enough time, so I got to keep going. Okay. Other information? No?
I don't know what. Yes.
Does it say
You're asking
other
if it's the
information?
screen. Yes. I'm sorry I didn't get that. I was like,
I don't know if your glasses work. No, I'm just kidding.
thanks.
They look good, but okay. So when we're talking about other information, obviously, again, no internal controls over the capital assets that was entered into Gateway, the debt information, and accounts payable, accounts receivable. So what we were seeing is, for the most part, for capital assets and accounts payable, receivable, that there wasn't supporting documentation that supported the numbers entered into the AFR. And I don't know. You should have that. Come on, document, Paula.
Of course, I was scrambling to do the AFR, walking in and trying to do that, but I can't find the book, the old ledger that had the land in it, that has the values of the land. We don't have something that the auditors could go to and validate our numbers.
And had the historical.
Keyword historical.
Historical cost.
We don't.
I know. And so unfortunately, if you can't find it, you can't locate it, you don't have any supporting, then you have to go back and you have to recreate it, which means if you can't find what the historical value of it is, you can do what they, and if you look in our bulletins, you'll see it at the end of the year. You have to go find what the replacement value of that is. So if it's land, sometimes you can, or a building, you can go sometimes with like insurance. Okay. And so you can get a replacement value. You can't use the replacement value, because the replacement value is of today's dollars, but you didn't buy it today. You bought it 25 years ago, okay? So you have to take that replacement cost and multiply it by a factor, and that gets you close enough to the historical value, and that's what you would have to do. But that means you're gonna have to do, it's in my bulletin, so send me it'll be in the end of the year bulletin, but send me an email. So what you're saying is, you're throwing it out here, but it's not really your problem.
What Ricky is
You're not
talking
going to
about.
get it done in 36 days.
So if you guys need that index to go by,
Yes.
you need to go to the December bulletin
Of every year.
of every single year, and it has a chart in it, and it tells you how to calculate it. So if for some reason it's something that you don't have, go
have to
there.
recreate it.
If you guys are having issues, call us. And we'll send you the link and tell you where it's at. But we will be publishing a new one at the end of the year with the updated. But no supporting documentation. And also for capital assets, no documentation for additions and reductions. So remember, I'm gonna say it now so I don't have to say it during capital assets. When you guys buy stuff, when you sell it, you got to take it off. You need to update your list with what's new and what's sold, especially if it's on your guys' capitalization policy and your threshold. If it's over that, you guys need to be keeping track of what you're selling and purchasing and updating those lists. And I know a lot of the times you guys are saying, well, the sheriff's department goes and buys vehicles and they don't tell me. Well, are you asking them to update their capital assets listing? Because again, you guys know when they're purchasing stuff. They should be able to say, oh yeah, you see this huge claim go out for the purchase of a vehicle. Well, hey, I know you bought this. Can you update it? Again,
Right.
If it's the department's fault, we need to see that when we're in there auditing, okay? We just need to make sure that those ledgers are updated and maintained. So I don't know what process and procedures, but we might need to work on those a little bit better. How are we getting the information updated? Debt, incorrectly categorized debt. So I think one of them was categorized, it was supposed to be a lease or something like that. It was like a one-off. It was very odd. But then the over and understated principal and investment amounts. Most of the time, debt only makes it into the report is whenever it's material. So whenever it's not materially correct, again, these are unaudited schedules, but whenever that information is materially incorrect, like you forgot to take off something that's already been paid for and it's like $1 million debt payment, well, it could be material to your financial statements if you keep it on there. So most of the time it's those type of corrections. So do we have any questions on this other information?
You're going to do the last one?
Accounts payable and receivable?
Yeah.
Oh, I kind of did it. No support. What's up, guys? Are you saying zero? Like, I don't know. The comments in the reports were very vague, but the way that I was reading them was that either you guys were saying that there was zero, but then whenever the auditors went back and they asked you again if there was receivables, there was like tons of receivables. And you guys were just like, oh, yeah, those were receivables. And so then again, they were found during audit. They were material. So that's why, again, they either chose to update the schedule or leave out the schedule in the audit report. So make sure you have that supporting documentation, okay? If you have a list of payables, receivables, make sure whatever you're putting into Gateway, you have something to support that. Because if you don't have something to support that, then where'd the numbers come from? Just one day did you walk in and say, I felt like I had this today? Don't let that be your answer, okay? So do we have any questions on that? No? Okay. Capital assets. feel like I've touched on this a lot. The detailed listing maintained, but not adequate. Again, most of the time it led to the additions and reductions. Things were being purchased, but whenever we pulled them to determine if the listing was up to date and we went to go look for the asset, either you sold it or there was a new asset and it hadn't been added, and it happened that way. Most of the time it's vehicles. It's things like that are kind of being left off, or they're being traded in and not taken off of the listing, things like that. Additions and reductions, again, not updated on the detailed listing, support not provided. And when we say support not provided for additions and reductions, there wasn't a list that said all of these assets were added and all of these assets were removed. So that's kind of what they're looking for. Like, what did we add this year? What did we remove this year? Where's that support at? Physical inventory not taken. So it might not be the auditor's job to do the inventory. It might be the departments that own the equipment. But how are we enforcing that? How are we making sure, like, what does your policy say? No policy establishing the capital asset threshold. I think this was only in one of the audit reports I looked at. So most of you have a policy. Most of it either says you're going to take inventory at least every 2 years, or you have a more strict policy that says you're going to do it every single year. Who's making sure it's getting done? Does that most of the time come down to you guys? I heard like a mumble, yeah, I'm sorry. But how are we making sure it's getting done? How can we fix it? Do we maybe need to inform and communicate that that's our policy? And remember, that's one of the 5 components of internal controls. Inform and communicate them what your policy is. And then at the end of every single year, if you're supposed to be doing inventory, that it's getting done. Okay? Because again, the comments are coming back on you guys. And I know it's you guys don't go buy all of these things. You guys don't do all the inventory. So how do we fix it? Okay? And we can help as much as you want us to. What do you want me to do? Do you want me to come out to your county, go out there and be like, I'm Stacy. Why are you not doing inventory? And I'll be like, is that a new vehicle? Okay. I can't say I can do that. But if we want to have a call with the department head and talk about why it's important and what they need to be doing, we can do that. We're here to help you guys, okay? So we don't have these comments. Okay. Monthly and annual engagement uploads. Okay, for some reason, we're just not uploading stuff. Are we just forgetting? Is it an afterthought? Is anyone making sure that it's done? Because I know probably, okay, there's a hand back there. Like, how do you guys make sure it's uploaded? Because you guys probably don't do, like the auditor probably doesn't, right? It's probably one of your deputies or someone else in your office. Who's doing that double check? Ricky? Behind you. Benton.
Oh, you wanted to talk. Sorry.
Yeah, she wanted to talk to me.
I'm coming to you next.
I don't want to. Yes, the deputy in my office does it, but before she uploads it, we have gotten stamps created that say processed by and then verified by. And as auditor, I'm the one that verifies all those before she's uploading them.
Oh, okay. That's awesome. That's a fun internal control. I love that. I don't know who you're walking to. Oh, way over here? Okay.
Well, I don't know if this is what you're talking about, but I live by my calendar and I share my calendar with our treasurer. And I went through, and on the 10th of every month, we meet to make sure we're all good, which we've already, and make sure our monthly comparisons match. So it's on our recurring calendar. So I know that I have all that uploaded by the 15th.
Okay.
So that's just an easy
That is an easy way. Set a calendar reminder.
Yeah.
I know that we are sending out emails now that if you aren't uploading stuff, I think you get an email quarterly if you're not uploading to be like, woo, woo, you didn't upload. I doubt it makes sound. But now whenever you guys see that email, it's not like the cops are coming, we're coming. Okay, woo, woo. Oh gosh, it's so close to the end of the day. We're almost there, guys. Okay, NVH restricted funds. Okay, internal controls are not effective. And whenever I was reading these comments, it was more so that it wasn't a proper use of funds. So for some reason, whatever's being paid out of the restricted funds, there was no one making sure that it is for construction, reconstruction, and preservation. So, who does it well? And how do you guys double check? Or do you guys just rely on the highway department to do it right? Nobody? Is that why there were so many comments? No, I'm just kidding. No one wants to tell me how you do it right? Okay, fine. You guys are tired of talking to me. Okay, disbursements were not for construction, reconstruction, and preservation. There was only a couple where NVH and NVH restricted were not reported separately on the AFR. That wasn't that common, but it was something that I saw a couple times. And payroll expenses with no support. So if they were out of restricted, there wasn't anything showing what was for construction, reconstruction, and preservation. If there was a percentage here and the other percentage was paid from NVH, like there was nothing to support that payroll. So do we feel like we need to talk about this more since this is such a prevalent comment, or where are we getting hung up? Is it not your guys' fault and it's highway, or what? Oh, it's highway. Okay. We're just deferring. It's not my problem. Okay. So we've been wanting to make a highway connection and get in and talk with them, because if there's something that we can do to make your guys' lives easier, we'd love to.
So I have a question. You have up there motor vehicle highway and motor vehicle highway restricted, not reported separately in the AFR. Does that mean it's okay to not report it separately, or it means that's not being done and it should be?
It's not being done and it should be.
Well, I guess my understanding is it's all the same at the state level as far as DLGF goes. Could
Like,
that be a
are you
reason
saying
that
you-
people misinterpret?
Oh, you budget it together, but
Right.
we report it separately. Because remember, statutorily, you have to put 50% into NVH restricted. Once it goes into restricted, it stays restricted. So then the uses are different for those funds.
And if I remember correctly, I mean, I think we are reporting it separately, but if people are not, that could be like a reason why they might think that way.
It might be.
It could be. We're going to talk a little bit more about it tomorrow. A little bit.
Yeah. So you have to stay. Ba-na-na-na.
Please stay.
Okay. Questions on this. It's not your guys' fault. It's someone else's. Noted. Next slide. Okay.
Wait. Can I say something?
Yeah. You want me to go back?
I know that a lot of times when we're talking about MVH, they want to use like maybe all unrestricted. And then later they'll say, okay, this portion was restricted. And that's okay, right? Because they're working on projects. And so sometimes those projects encompass more than construction, reconstruction, and preservation. And so at the time they're paying the claim, they're paying it with unrestricted. And then maybe monthly, maybe quarterly. I don't know what your procedures are. They want to move that money. Make sure you have the documentation that they have. See where how they allocated that, right? Like, it shouldn't be on a piece of paper that just says, hey, 60% of that needs to go there. Okay, because that's where the problem's going to come. If they can't support that movement of that money, even with you, you need to probably question it. Okay? That was it.
Yeah. What she said. Okay, overdrawn. We're kind of nearing, okay, I only have one other one. So that was the most common. Overdrawn cash balances. Okay. When you guys enter your information into AFR, or do you guys do like a cursory review of your fund ledger and say, what's negative? Okay. Then why are there non-grant funds that were overdrawn? Come on, guys. Like, we're talking about like some of your payroll withholding funds that are overdrawn. Oh, the health department.
We're not discussing that.
That was funny. I like that. You guys are, I love you guys. You know that? You guys are fun. I didn't say that, okay? But we need to be able, okay, so I don't know. Maybe it's another step. Who's doing the cursory review? Who's making sure that there's no negative funds that aren't reimbursement funds? Okay, again, those are allowed because you're going to get the money at some point. But How are we making sure that we're not in the negative? Okay. Who has a really great process that would love to share with me? Oh, she doesn't have a good process. She just wants to comment.
We're talking about the AFR, right?
Yes.
Have you ever seen that when you're reviewing it in Gateway?
Yes.
It's this big.
I know.
Why can't they make that the whole screen?
Well,
I mean, I can't be the only one with bad eyes.
and I want to tell you, there is a solution for bad eyes. If you go to the annual report outputs, have you ever went and looked at that?
The bottom of it?
Yes, and you open up this whole thing that shows you your reports that you can run. I believe that there's a negative balance report you can run, and it pulls out all the negatives, or you can literally run all your funds and blow it up.
Yep.
Because it shows up as a PDF or an Excel, and you can make it as big as you want it to.
Was there like directions that said that? Because for 2 years, I can't see this.
In the user guide, maybe, but it's more of like a tip and trick.
I love it. Yeah.
Okay. So, we're not going to do that anymore. We're going to implement something, and we're going to double check. Okay. Certification on internal control standards. You guys, they're having too much fun.
I know.
And I have 5 minutes.
Yep.
Okay. So, internal controls were not effective. And this comment mostly was around, do you guys remember in the AFR when it asked you those questions at the very beginning of it? And at the very bottom, there's 2 questions that ask you about the certification of internal controls and your policy and everything like that. So the comments are most of the time written that you guys are saying, yes, everybody has watched the video that is required to watch the video. But when we go ask for the documentation and the support that everyone who is supposed to watch it watched it, the support's not there. So we need to make sure that if they watch the video, we're keeping the paperwork. And I don't know, do you guys keep it in the personnel files? Do you just make everyone sit down and watch the video in one day? No. Do you make everybody do it? Or do you just make those people, again, that handle cash? Some counties say, we're just going to make everybody do it because what if they touch cash? Some people say, no, these are only the required personnel that need to do this. They're going to do it. So I don't know. I don't know how we make sure that the documentation is there because, again, if you hire a new person into your office that will be taking money, they need to be watching that video. They need to be aware of that training. I think it's 26 minutes. So we need to make sure we keep that support. Ricky.
Yes.
Lady in the red.
I have a question while I'm walking to her.
Yeah.
What time does the QR code shut down?
3 o'clock.
Okay, I need to flip to it because I have somebody that needs it.
Okay.
We had a little.
Go now.
You talk, I'll go.
Okay, some conflicting on, is this to be done every single year or once somebody does it?
So what's your policy say? It just says it needs to be watched. Okay. We don't, in statute, correct me if I'm wrong, Lori, it does not say it has to be done yearly. But some counties, when they adopted their policy over internal control standards, they have put in there, they have to do it every single year. And I think some are doing that to catch those people that are hired new, okay? Or they might do it on onboarding, but it doesn't say that in statute that you have to do it every single year. It says that those individuals that handle cash need to watch that training.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Okay. Okay, did everyone scan it? You have 2 minutes. If you haven't scanned it, scan it. Okay, so do we have any questions on the internal control standards? No? I don't have time to go through all my other comments.
Just briefly mention them.
Okay, the other comments were credit cards. People are, yeah, but you know what? Why aren't they turning in supporting documentation to you guys? That's what fluffed me up. Yeah.
I love that.
I was like, rude. That is wrong, that they're not giving you guys supporting documentation so you can pay that claim. That's just wrong, okay? Transfers. Remember when we talked about the authority to transfer funds? Where's the authority to transfer funds? You can't just be transferring all willy-nilly, okay? Timely recording. Make sure it's posted timely. And if you got something, post it. Don't wait 30 days. Errors on claims. Again, this is human error, okay? If you made a mistake, you made a mistake. I don't think it was that big of a deal. There was like only one of those. Supporting documentation. I feel like that's been a key. There's no supporting documentation. What the heck? Why isn't there supporting documentation? Recording transactions. This, I think, had to do with the negative receipts and disbursements. Payroll errors. The lit distribution one was like a one-off. It was posted in the wrong place. So, disbursements not approved by the Board of Commissioners. Oh, someone's face went, yeah, what the heck? I believe, again, that was like a one-off. Compensation and benefits. If you're paying someone compensation, it needs to be on the salary ordinance. Board minutes. Have board minutes, period. Okay? Auditor and treasurer reconcilement. You guys are going to do that perfectly now, and I'm never going to see that comment again. And don't pay payments in advance. No. Okay. That was what I had. Questions? Unless statute authorizes. Trademark Lori Rogers. Okay. Questions, comments, concerns? It's 3 o'clock, so I don't think this will work if it's 3:01. So hopefully you don't need it. We are done for the day. We'll see you all tomorrow from 9 to 12, but